Hello, what's happening? It's Jem here. Jay, oh my gosh, I sound excited, don't I? Too much Turkish coffee. I hope you're well. You might be coming in from LinkedIn or TikTok with regards to your retrospective is like a morgue. It's really frosty. People aren't talking. Everyone's so quiet. What do I do? This is tricky. It's difficult. There's a minestrone of different reasons. I am going to share my screen and make this a working session. I do apologize. I'm not looking at you. I hope you don't see that as rude. There were 10 reasons in the video that I gave on the TikTok. Like, why is your retro really quiet? Is the team too big? Is it poor team stability? Is it a false retrospective? Have you got a brilliant jerk? It's a boot camp. And there were some other reasons as well. We got to 10 because, you have to have 10 reasons to make these videos marketable, apparently. But I'm going to focus on these 5. So let's look at number 1. And the orange cards are like the ideal situation, right? Not everybody is in a position of luxury. If you've got the ability to do these things in orange, fantastic. For those of you who can't, I've got some ideas for you. Why is your retro frosty? Well, the team is too big. It's a classic reason. There's all types of science behind this. I don't really want to get into that and make the video half an hour long, but check out Dunbar's theory. It's about having stable relationships. There's 150 people that we can have a level of meaning with when it comes to relationships. But if we're talking about trustworthy and, real connectivity with people, it's something like the number of 10. And if we're talking about deep trust where you can really share your vulnerabilities, it's the number of 5. Why does that matter? Well, if we don't trust people, we can't talk about the difficult problems. And a lot of the improvements that we need to make our relationships better, professional, platonic, romantic, whatever, lie in the hard conversations, not in the easy ones, right? So, yeah, no bigger than 10. So how do you do that? Well, in an ideal situation, you are able to structure the organization so all teams are 10. And we all know that we haven't got that opportunity, all of us. So we want to make teams more, autonomous, more independent. And because we can't, because of, say, architectural, technological, political, bureaucratic reasons, we have teams with high dependencies, and then those high dependencies translate into a bloated team because we can't do things by ourselves, and we need a lot more expertise in one place than we could have, right? If we had created, say, more loosely coupled systems where teams are more autonomous. So if you can't make the team smaller, what can you do? If you're going into a retrospective of around 20 people, consider activities that let you group up the team into smaller little subgroups. So I had a team of like 18 recently. We had something like 4-4s. Most of the teams were, size 4, with the exception of the 4th team. Why does that help? When you present a topic and you ask a hard question, or people want to discuss an idea, when people break out into smaller groups within that team for the retro, it allows everyone to get that equal voice. Because when you're in a larger group, the people who might be more of an introverted nature may not want to speak out in such a large forum. I found by breaking people down into smaller groups within that one large team for the retro allows them to feel more confident, and I've got one team representative that wants to feed back. That's a way of creating equal voice. It's not perfect, but it's something. Another thing that we can do for large teams is think about synchronous and asynchronous communication. This is a fancy way of saying set shit up before the retro actually happens. So say you're doing a 2-week retro, invite the team to start adding information about their experience of the retro. There's many ways to structure this, that doesn't matter, but capture the information beforehand. Why? Not everyone enjoys real-time, on-the-spot reactions and thoughts, even in small teams. And in large teams, it gets worse. So invite people to add that information. And when you walk into the retro, you'll have much more data that you might have, categorized and synthesized a little bit as a Scrum Master and an Agile coach. And that begins to build a bit of a theme and a kind of landscape that people may want to speak to. So consider those 2 things for big teams. All right, poor team stability. Yeah, look, stable teams are teams which are going to be more effective because of things like the Tuckman cycle. I know, don't come for me, it's not perfect. But the dynamic of groups of humans change every time we have new people coming and new people going. So The ideal is the orange card. Yep. No shared players and perfect attrition. Well, that doesn't really happen in many of the organizations I've worked for. So the very difficult thing that we could do is build the case for change. Now, the reason that card is in pink or red or fuchsia, is it one of the two, is because it's hard to do that, right? To get to the bottom of why we're sharing people out, now we're looking at organizations with a short-term view who may have knee-jerk reactions, so they may be using projects as their means to deliver value, versus a organization that think about product development and they've got a long-term view, and the teams are longer lived. That's a more tricky problem to address. You could look at books like From Project to Product with Mick Kirsten to get you going on that. The other question to ask is, why is attrition so bad? You know, people keep coming and going, they leave. What's up? What is happening? It's hard to figure out, you know, what's happening. Aren't they working at a sustainable pace? Are they not having meaningful work? Is there lots of context changing? Now we're looking at things like intrinsic motivation. So the reason that I have offered these pink red cards is because these are what I see as more wicked problems. To change an organization into a more product focused organization and getting to the bottom of attrition, that really is difficult. And building the case for change is to demonstrate back to management or whoever the powers that be are, you know, how expensive it is when we're having short-term teams and we've got an organization where people keep coming and going, and how that plays with stability. So I'm sorry, I'm copping out a little bit. You know, that's a bit of a rabbit hole. Number 3, a false retrospective. Yeah, look, it's what it says on the tin. The agile coach or the scrum master has come in and imposed the retro on the team. And ideally, you know, people know why they do the retro and they're excited for it. But in many cases, not everyone sees the value in it. Some people see the value in it, but haven't got the time for it because they're part of the death march or they're always busy. They can't see the point of slowing down to go faster. So what can we do? Well, the green cards are some options that I've tried. I invite people to the retro, and those who want to come, come. But Jem, that's terrible. We're going to have half a team missing. Yeah, I hear that. That's uncomfortable. But you'd be surprised how the team members who come that do have a good experience do what all people do, which is, well, positive gossip. They start playing back the information to the others. People have some FOMO, you know, that fear of missing out, and they may turn up. There's another thing that I've seen that happens. People, you know, create some sort of peer pressure. You know, Bob, Lisa, you weren't at the retro. You know, half of the team have to make notes and we've got to pass it on. That's a big overhead. We need you there. There's a difference between a controlled fire and a wildfire, right? So when you're joining a team and you're inviting them to the retro and they know why, make sure it's an invitation. And if it's just a few sprints, I see that as a controlled fire. We're hoping that they see the problem with that and they have that normative experience, and it turns into, do you know what? We see the benefit of missing these things, or we've heard the good things about the retro. We're turning up for the next one. It's not always that perfect, but consider it. Number 4, a brilliant jerk. Yeah, the ideal is not that he or she is coachable, is that we don't have brilliant jerks. Yeah, that's a bit crap in it. But yeah, that's the ideal. We don't have such people. But the reality is, very often we can see that poorly designed systems can beat well-intended people, and there are outliers to that, right? Some people are too far gone. There are personality clashes that don't work. So what can we do with a situation where there is a brilliant jerk? They're dominating the conversation. They are good at what they do, and their EQ is not very high. So when people do share certain comments and ideas, they get shot down and so on and so forth. Well, go back to basics. Try and fix the system. Facilitate better in this respect. Get the team contract. Ask that question. What do we need to be effective as a team, right? So go back to that. We need respect. We need openness, whatever. To ask the team, what does that look like? So let's get example behaviors of what respect looks like. It's disrespectful if you shoot me down for what you might think is a stupid question, right? It's disrespectful if you keep talking over me and not letting me get that equal voice. When you ask the team, what do you need to be effective, to work in this retro, we're not expecting them to be perfect. It's just that not if, but when people fall off the horse, as a facilitator, we've got a compass to bring them back to what good looks like. Also, don't forget, when you facilitate, it's not just about asking the team, what do they need? Make it clear, what do you need? What do I need as the facilitator? So make your needs clear and apparent. And that's another way of weaving in the idea of equal voice, no one hogging the microphone, and, you know, keeping people honest about what behaviors that they signed up to in their team contract. Also, consider one-to-one conversations. Not everything needs to be in a team setting. I have found that dealing with a brilliant jerk, I don't write off the person, but for whatever reason, they become the way they become in that team. Take them out, have a coffee, buy them a slice of cake, have the conversation. You know, some people react way better to difficult critique and feedback when they're away from the team because the egos get bruised. Think about it. Number 5, finally, it's a boot camp. That's right. The ideal is it's not a boot camp. I've got to work on these. Can you tell that I'm doing this on the spot? Look, when I say it's a boot camp, this ties in number 3, where you're forcing and you're imposing what you want the team to do versus inviting them and engaging them. But it's something else. It's a boot camp turns into, right, I've got my tick list here. It's sprint goal delivered. What are the metrics? What are the inputs? What are the outputs? That these things are important, right? I'm not trying to demonize metrics. It's important that we know about things that we're delivering, from the software enablers all the way to making an impact for the business. Granted, sure. But the problem becomes when the pendulum swings too far to, you know, one side where it's all about just the objective data. Empiricism, which is learning through experience, which is what Scrum is built on. Remember, it's not just objective, it has to be subjective as well, right? So you need to create space for the thoughts and the feelings of the people, and don't just turn this into some sort of checklist, okay? In terms of tips of doing that, you know, set your intention as a facilitator, compartmentalize the retro with the team and say, yeah, you know, we're going to check in with each other, the soft stuff, and then we're going to talk about the outputs and get the balance between divergence and convergence. You know, we want to hear people's thoughts and feelings, allow people to rant, yeah, let people get things off their chest, but it's got to kind of converge. It's got to go somewhere whereby we've got to look at the harder data to talk about what are the tangible things to make the world a little bit of a better place in the next sprint. Okay, and breathe. Look, bit rough and ready. I'll sort out the camera. I'll make it a bit more fancy schmancy, but it does the job. I hope that's useful. I didn't do the other 5. I haven't had the time, but I wanted to get the 5 in. And you know what they say, perfection can be the enemy of progress. So good enough. That's what's up. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you on Agile Rooms in TikTok.